welcome to another one of our Doctor Who reviews. Today we're talking about something a bit different from the main Doctor Who stuff. We're looking at the Scream of the Shalka.
Yes, very different from that, seeing as you can't remember a lot of it.
I've seen it once, and that was back in about 2004, I think. Maybe even early 2005. It was definitely before the series came back. But I remember when it was announced, I could never get the actual page to load because our internet was crap. So, this was like I was watching it for the first time because I really couldn't remember a lot of it at all. First episode I had a vague memory of, and some of the stuff in the caves. But otherwise it was a fresh experience, so it was quite interesting.
I don't remember a lot of it from kind of part 3 onwards.
Yeah.
Because I think I just kind of got bored. It's very difficult to watch something when you're looking at a screen.
Yeah.
For those who don't know, Scream of the Shalka was a webcast broadcast online for Doctor Who's 40th anniversary. As we learnt watching the special features, it had a bit of a bumpy road being made, and in fact it was released 2 months after it was announced Doctor Who was coming back with Christopher Eccleston as the Doctor. So what a strange turn of events that led to this story's creation.
It was a strange thing, because obviously they all thought that within the BBC that Doctor Who was never coming back, and they had been told outrightly that no one's interested in Doctor Who, it's never going to return to television. So I guess, they had all that expectations of being, this could be it, this could be the future of Doctor Who, we've got our brand new 9th Doctor. And then it was all cut short.
Yeah. For a while it was the future, wasn't it? Because, I mean, they didn't know that it was coming back, they didn't know the negotiations were going on to bring it back with Christopher Eccleston and Russell T Davies. So for a while, what they were working on was the future of Doctor Who. Whether or not it would have been a success after Scream of the Shalka and gone on to make more stories,
that would have remained to be seen, wouldn't it, really? I remember being fairly excited about it. I thought, this is... I didn't think at that point, growing up, I'd seen so many news reports of Eddie Izzard's going to be the Doctor, Alan Davis is going to be the Doctor, and all this kind of thing. I think by that point, it was just nice to hear something was coming on.
Yes.
It's like, oh, well, if it's a cartoon, it's a cartoon.
Had you had any knowledge of the Big Finish stories before Scream of the Shalka came out?
I don't think I had.
No.
By that point. I don't know how old I would have been. I would have been about 11 years old when this came out in 2003.
Yes.
So I might have done a little bit. I think I did, actually, because I remember we had some Doctor Who magazines and they did come with the...
Living Legend.
Yeah.
That was the first original Doctor Who story I've ever read or listened to.
Yeah.
And then Scream of the Shalka came out, which was weird because it really was jumping straight off the boat from McGann.
Yeah.
And we even said at the beginning, the story seems like it really was written for McGann.
Yeah.
And you wonder if actually he was approached to do it. Maybe he was too busy doing the Big Finish stuff. Maybe they didn't want to cross the two over, or maybe they just wanted to have a completely new start.
Because you never know, because Paul Cornell might have thought, oh, well, I'll write it for Paul. And then maybe perhaps someone at the BBC said, oh no, we don't want to have him. Absolutely. And so they just thought, well, we'll just give it to whoever. But I could see where that was coming from, that whole, it could have been written for him. But as a story... well, let's talk about Richard E. Grant as the Doctor.
Yeah, okay.
That's probably the most interesting thing.
I think Paul Cornell, in his words, is saying that he definitely lightens up towards the end of the story and becomes more energetic.
Yeah.
He definitely brightens up as a Doctor. When you have a more melancholy Doctor at the beginning, it does. You don't feel engaged with him.
No.
Because the Doctor's a jolly kind of,
rambunctious,
just get in there and sort all the action out.
I think we both sort of said that the first episode feels kind of stilted, the movement of it, the pace of it. And I think that is probably because the Doctor just doesn't want to be there. And I guess you sort of feel like, well, if you don't want to be there, I don't really want to be there either.
Yeah.
And none of the characters in the pub are really that interesting or engaging. I guess the only woman who is actually engaging in that first episode is the old bag lady.
Yes,
who probably gets killed. Yeah. So it is quite strange, but like you said, as it goes on, he sort of comes into his own and he becomes more the Doctor as we know him. Even
so, and we learnt this from the documentary, Richard E. Grant was inserting lines in there that seem very undoctorish.
Yeah.
I mean, we see them as doctorish now, I suppose, with the kind of the zania, off-the-wall doctors, but his pattern of speech does seem to vary towards not being quite right a lot of the time, and that's not even in the earlier episodes where he is more melancholic and more kind of like depressed.
Yeah.
When he actually does start to open up a little bit, he says things that sound not quite right.
Yeah.
Like the big boy thing.
That
you can imagine Tennant saying that.
Yeah.
As an early precedent to that.
And I think actually when we were watching it today, when that line came out, I sort of had a flashback to watching it whenever I did watch it, however old I was, and thinking, ooh, the Doctor doesn't talk like that.
Not at all.
And obviously now he does sadly talk like that a lot.
Well, we'll see if that will carry on with Capaldi, won't we?
Yeah,
or if all that nonsense out the window. I imagine it is with Capaldi. I imagine he probably saw something in the script and said, get that shit out.
It's quite funny because it feels like he's trying to be quite old school Doctor Who, because you've got your traditional alien invasion, you've got the military involved,
you've got the Master.
You've got the Master involved, but it is trying to give it a kick up the backside and bring it into the 21st century. So
even with the dubstep title sequence and
the dubstep title sequence, which I'm not quite sure about. I
quite like it.
You like it?
I remember when I used to make fan films back in the day, I thought if I'm going to have a theme tune, I'm going to use that one.
Yeah.
And I found a very dodgy rip of it online. It gave me a virus, and luckily that fan film never saw the light of day because of that virus. But I think it's quite. It definitely really. If you didn't know kind of what the story was about, and the fact that we're getting more interaction with families like we have in the new series, that's the thing that really does kind of say, well, this is a new generation of Doctor Who, and we're going to push it into the 21st century.
Yeah. You get a lot more drama with the companion and her boyfriend. The problem with that is, she's not a very interesting character.
She's boring.
He's boring as well. So really, that doesn't work.
No.
Whereas when you come to 2005, Rose Tyler, as much as I don't like all the fuss that's been made about her since Series 2, at the time, she was a more interesting character. Her mum was more of a character, and you actually liked her, and you sort of enjoyed that interaction. So it's trying. It really is like it works. The story, I think, works as a very nice stepping stone between we've had the classic series, we've tried to make it back in the 90s with a TV movie, we're trying to get it into the 21st century, but we haven't quite refined it yet. And then we get into Rose, and it's like, this is what Doctor Who should be like in the 21st century.
And the Virgin New Adventures before then were experimenting with families and more grown-up ideas. But it does fall down when you have characters you just don't relate to. And you just think, I don't care what happens to you. I didn't care what happened to Alison. I mean, I didn't care what happened to her boyfriend. Again, it was that problem with Death of the Daleks where you forget that there are characters in it because they're not interesting.
I mean, I forgot that he was in it.
He's blown up by the truck, and then you have a whole load of action in the caves with the Shalka, and then he reappears, and the last thing I remember him shouting was Alison as she disappears into the lava, and that's it. Not there for another episode, and then suddenly reappears and he's concerned about her. So those characters really didn't provide enough emotional punch for you to really invest in them and feel sorry for them.
I mean, if anything, I think the military characters were slightly more interesting. Not so much the commander, but the sort of the
Graves.
He was great because he was a bit of comic relief. And it was not. That was nice to have that.
You can see them returning if they've made more stories set on Earth. It's almost like they're trying to set up a new unit family in the same way that they've got Kate Stewart and Osgood now. It's almost like they're trying to set up a unit family for the Doctor there.
I mean, obviously the commander even said, "Oh, we've got room for one more."
Yes.
So I definitely think that probably was the idea that they probably could return to those characters. But it's like we said with regards to Alison being boring. We sort of said, well, I don't quite see what the appeal is from the Doctor's point of view.
No.
What does he get from her that's so special?
Especially when I had no idea of this, but that there was a backstory, an unreleased backstory involving the Shalka Doctor, involving him going back to Gallifrey, retiring, falling in love with the Lord President's daughter, and then them getting married, and then living there, and then the monsters come. I don't know if that's a precedent for the Time War, some kind of alternative Time War,
possibly.
And then she dies, and the Time will scurry away into the Matrix, and the Doctor flees from Gallifrey and is back doing their dirty work. The opening of it, when the TARDIS lands on the street corner, reminded me of Brain of Morbius. When
he comes out and
says, "I'm not doing your dirty work anymore."
Definitely.
And a lot of the elements of Tom Baker's Doctor are in the Shalka Doctor, because he's name dropping constantly. That kind of bogs the character down a little bit, because if you've got nothing else interesting to say other than anecdotes of adventures we haven't seen, then there's nothing else there for him.
Another thing that bugged me about this was the Doctor kept sort of saying, "Oh, don't worry, I'm just being eccentric." And I sort of thought, don't say you're being eccentric, because you just are. It's not. It's. I get the feeling that sometimes, I mean, maybe this is just his Doctor, but I think with Tom Baker's Doctor, you know, he doesn't realise he's being eccentric.
No, that's
he's
the
just
funny
being
part.
him. Yeah.
When he plays it totally straight and he's doing something really stupid, and everybody else is looking at him like, "What's going on?" That's the funny part.
I think it's probably. Again, it's probably this 21st century thing. You know, they probably think, well, the audience knows that the Doctor is an eccentric, so let's just play up to that, and you know, we know that's what he's like. So perhaps that's part of that. I don't know, but I don't think that necessarily works.
No. If you point out the hallmarks of a character without actually doing anything with it, other than shouting "big boy" or whatever, which didn't really work in the first place, you're kind of stuck a bit, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, there were a few moments with his Doctor that I quite liked.
Yeah, there were some very, very wry bits of humour in there.
Yeah.
I think the standout for comedy in it is Derek Jacobi as the Master.
He's fantastic.
He's such a good Master. You didn't recognise his voice when he first appeared.
I didn't know, because I had a funny feeling it was, and I listened to the voice, I thought, that doesn't sound anything like Derek Jacobi. But, I mean, he's fantastic.
Yeah,
it's just
superb Master.
I mean, it's no wonder they brought him back to do it for...
Radiates that comedy of saying, "I call everybody my dear." You know,
it's fantastic.
One of the best lines.
I mean, it's there's a campness to it without sort of really being camp.
I noticed something that I'd completely forgotten about. That answer machine message.
Yeah.
What's that about?
That's really weird.
It's really because they're popping champagne, the Doctor and the Master.
Yeah.
They're having a nice jolly time and they're having a giggle.
Yeah.
And it really seems out of character.
Yeah, when I was listening to that, I thought, what is going on?
Yeah.
And it seemed, what was Paul Cornell thinking when he was writing that? What's happening there? So
there must be some fan fiction about that on there.
Yeah.
There must be.
So who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows what happened between the Master and the Doctor?
Really, a robot Master and a really depressed Doctor. I don't want to think about that.
No. And a bit worrying.
Even Prime says that the Master's there as his toy.
Yeah. It's all a bit.
Oh, it's
getting a bit
dodgy.
seedy there.
Yeah, it's getting a bit dodgy. Let's move on to
sweep
other elements of it.
The
Shalka, like we said earlier, it's in that weird gestation period between the Wilderness Years and the new series.
Yeah.
And because it's there's a lot of baggage of what people expected from Doctor Who.
Definitely.
There's another documentary on the DVD which deals with the cult Doctor Who website, and I think very much it's being issued as not only a cult thing, you know, it's a very niche market that we're building into.
Definitely.
But also we're trying to make it mainstream with the pop music and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's trying. It's like it still has too much of a foot in the past.
Definitely.
To really get out there. You know, I think. I mean, you said at the beginning, would there have been any more? I don't think it would have happened.
I'm quite happy with just that one story.
Yeah.
I think it works quite nice.
Yeah.
It almost rounds off that Doctor. I mean, they even said in the documentary they wanted a beginning, a middle and an end for his character progression. I think he starts off very, not very happy here, then realises that he likes the company of Alison for some reason. Maybe he just likes boring people. And at the end of the story, you have that final resolution where it's like, I'm going away, I'm having adventures, I'm back to my old self again.
Definitely, yeah. And, you know, we can, as the fans, we can imagine what happened next. Monster-wise, the Shalka?
Yeah, the Shalka I thought were very, very cool. Very cool design. You said reminiscent of the Reapers.
Yeah, the sort of like the beak-like faces and the fiery inside bits, you know, that was all very much like the Reapers later in another Paul Cornell story in Father's Day. So I don't know if that was necessarily a
It seems funny, doesn't it? That they're very similar.
Yeah, especially the faces. The faces, I really sort of thought they look quite similar. I mean, I did turn around to you and say, you know, I'm surprised they haven't decided to ever adapt this as a television story, because I think it would work quite well as a TV story.
Well, they adapted it as a novelisation afterwards, which I've read, and is...
Is it better or worse?
Well, it expands on the characters a bit, but to be honest, you can't really go that far away from the animation, because even though the animation it's very restricted, and we'll come on to this in a minute, the animation is so restricted you can't do many things with it. Even though you have the novelisation to expand on it, you don't want to expand too far away from the actual source material. But yeah, I think the Shalka are absolutely brilliant. There's a nice description of them that I'd not realised, but the hoods they wear focuses the sonic energy. Little details like that I think make them quite formidable. The only problem is they don't have a personality other than we want to invade the Earth.
That's the trouble.
It's the trouble with a lot of these monsters. A lot of the monsters for Virgin New Adventures and stuff, they don't tend to really have a lot of baggage behind them. It's just enemy invasion and stuff.
But I guess I guess that's why, in some ways, we find that with the new series, don't we? That there's a lot of these one-hit wonders that, you know, you would never really bring them back.
No, I'd bring the Shalka back. I think
Yeah, I think you could probably
really
do
cool.
something with them.
I like the fact that the floor, they can use the floor as teleportation to get through. They liquefy the floor, go down into the caves, and then they build it back up again.
They've got a lot of power to them. I think if they were, obviously now that they've refined the way that the program's made now, and how it's written, I think they probably could do something with it.
Yeah.
In a similar way, with all the sort of 21st century elements that we've talked about. And I think it could probably work quite well. Whether or not that would ever happen, but I think it would be nice to see the Shalka as a proper alien in Doctor Who.
Yeah, I mean, we were saying how the Exelons are strange little creatures in the Death of the Daleks review, and then somebody on the Facebook group actually said that Nick Briggs is writing a Big Finish story called The Exelons.
Oh, is he really?
So, for the Fourth Doctor, apparently. Which is really quite
well,
exciting.
He likes it, you said, didn't you?
Yeah, he
loves that story.
Yeah.
Fascinating. I wonder how that will work.
Yeah, I'd love to see the Shalka back, because the Shalka, they depend on sound.
Yeah.
So, for an audio drama,
that would work very well.
Really well. You could deafen the audience with their headphones on.
Yeah.
And use little sonic vibrations through the speakers.
That would be very clever for
sound really
sound
cool.
designers.
Yeah.
Oh, there we are. There we are, Mr. Briggs.
We'll write a Shalka sequel then. In case you didn't know, it's animated. It's the first proper animated Doctor Who story. And because of the times, because of the way they wanted to stream it with bandwidth online on dial-up connections, I remember trying to watch it in the middle of the countryside on the slowest dial-up connection possible. It didn't happen. I just saw that TARDIS spinning
around
constantly, flashing its light, and the loading bar getting... Oh no, it's not actually moved, it's staying exactly where it is.
Yeah, I think the furthest I ever got was that little opening bit when the meteorite crashes to Earth.
Yeah. That's the very first scene.
And that's it. And I think I might have just got a bit of the Doctor coming out of the TARDIS. And then I think after that, it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
So I just never bothered. And then
but because of the restrictions of that, there's very little they can do in the way of... I mean, you don't even see the characters run.
No.
They don't move their hands or their legs, really. It's all in the face.
Yeah.
So you have to rely on, a script that knows the limitations.
Definitely.
And I don't know if Paul's script quite knows what he's dealing with. Because there's a lot of running about to and fro. There's gun battles, there's zombies, there's warehouses getting taken over and fighter jets exploding. Yeah. I don't know if he quite knows what he's in for in terms of the animation.
Yeah. He's probably... When they probably came around to him and said, "Oh, we're doing a fully animated Doctor Who," he was like, "Well, all right,
brilliant. It's going to be CGI. It's going to look absolutely fantastic."
Definitely.
Yeah.
But sadly not. But I did say to you, I think all the stuff that they did, despite the limitations, it was all done really well. Yeah. All the stuff with the zombies and the fighter jets. All right, it might be a bit clunky, but I think it was okay. I mean, you didn't watch it and think, "What bloody hell's going on here?" No. It was clear.
And I think that lends itself to the tone as well, because like they said, they had to cut occasionally to static shots of no animation at all so they could load the next scene up.
Definitely.
And with that come the silhouettes and with the shadowy cave interiors, and that gives it a style which is unrivaled, I think, in Doctor Who.
Yeah.
You'd never see anything quite like that again, not just because it's animated and it's sort of drawn and cartoony.
Yeah.
I think the only thing you come close to is the invasion, but the problem with that is it's trying to directly mirror what was seen on television back in the 60s.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's very, very dark. Very dark.
Even the console room, you can't see the roundels on the wall. No. It's just, everything's left to black. You can just think, you just imagine that console room just goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
There's a Zeppelin hangar somewhere. There's a lift in the TARDIS. It's all very steampunky and Dickensian, and
which again, like we said, that was very vogue at the time.
Yes.
That was the thing.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's got elements of the McGann TARDIS.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Unsurprising because it was such a nice design.
And the spiral staircase is very lovely.
I really like that. It's a really nice console room, and I think because you have that first scene when the meteorite lands and it's quite bright and sunny.
Yeah.
And that bit at the beginning almost doesn't quite fit with the rest of the story.
I think maybe that's supposed to be a counterpoint visually.
And I think when you get to the end, in the graveyard or whatever it is...
Yeah, it's all quite bright again.
Bright again. So, but I think once that TARDIS lands under that bridge, and it's really dark and shadowy. I mean, you can't even see the door sign writing.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's an animation thing. But, it really does set the tone for the whole story.
Yes, it does, yeah.
And I think it works really well.
Something I just realised, their base was in Lanarkshire, wasn't it? The Shalka.
Yes, I think so.
So why did it land in Tarangi?
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure why it ended up there.
Yes.
Because that was it seems to build up like that's the spearhead invasion force.
Definitely.
But even Prime says this is the bridgehead of the Shalka.
Yeah.
This is the first like 2,000 Shalka that we've brought to Earth. So why was that meteor featured? Unless it's just another load of Shalka.
Yeah.
But then you imagine they've been there for as long as the Prime Shalkas have been there.
Yeah, it doesn't quite connect. Does it?
No.
That scene doesn't really. You probably could have even just started off with the Doctor coming to Earth, couldn't you?
I was just about to say you kind of need it to set up, but you don't.
Yeah.
You don't at all, because everything's explained in the pub.
Yeah.
It might have been better, in fact, to have not featured that.
Yeah.
Because I remember that is definitely in the novelisation.
Yeah.
It's a prologue to the rest of it. Maybe if it had been a pre-title sequence, it might have worked slightly better. Because then you have the title sequence to bookend than this part and the next section. But then I suppose maybe they would have had to worry about bandwidth. Because they've got to load up the title sequence, and then you've got the next lot of animation. Yeah. So after the title sequence, it probably would have just ended.
Yeah.
It's interesting talking about this, because with no other Doctor Who story do you talk about bandwidth.
No.
Or issues with, there were many issues of production, but you don't talk about that kind of formatting in any other Doctor Who story.
Yeah, it's not, there isn't the trouble of how the bloody hell is anyone going to watch it sort of thing. You
absolutely.
Know? So, and I guess a lot of people, some of the people watching this, will have never experienced this sort of internet problem.
I know. Back in the day when there was no Facebook, I feel old now. When there was no Facebook, when there was no YouTube, everything was the size of a postage stamp. And listening to that documentary, the Death Comes to Time.
The sound.
Oh, the sound is just, it takes me back. I love that. It sounds awful. I wouldn't want to experience it again, because for that little snippet,
it's a bit of nostalgia. You remember,
oh, man.
Listening to it and thinking, how can I even listen to this?
Yeah.
Let's not even bother.
The good times and the bad times, they're just crazy.
So we need to rate this story now.
Well, you go first, because having really never watched it before...
Yeah, it's quite a tricky one, because I know there are a lot of people out there who really, really do like this story.
Yeah, and a lot of people that detest it.
Yeah.
When it was announced it was coming out on DVD, of course, on Gallifrey Base, everybody started moaning about it.
Yeah.
Not only that it was being released on DVD because, they think that certain things should and shouldn't be released.
Yeah.
But people just thought, oh, not that tripe. And, I think that it's never really been given a fair stage to explain itself. And that DVD really does it justice.
Yeah.
It really explains the turmoil they went through making it, and that it was a labour of love. And, you can watch it online for free. I think it's still on the BBC website, isn't it?
I think it is.
So you can watch it online for free. There's no excuse to
unless
not watch
they've taken it down and they've brought it out on DVD.
Ooh, that would be
they
tricky,
might be a
wouldn't
bit...
it?
They can be sold to the BBC
Yeah, they can.
and stuff like that. If they can make money for it.
Yeah, well, tell us if it's still on there.
Yeah, have a look.
And also, try and buy the DVD.
Yeah, this story, I'm going to give it... Now, I said that Death to the Daleks is about an 8 or a 7, didn't I?
Yeah, I think it was a 7 you gave it.
Yeah, 7. Yeah, 7 possibly going into an... Instead of 7.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy this as much as Death to the Daleks.
No, I didn't enjoy it as much.
But it's alright. So I give it about a 6 or a 7.
Yeah.
I'd say a 6. It's a sort of...
Yeah, I'd probably give it a 5.
Really?
I mean, I think it's good in some respects. In other respects, it just falls short. And I think just because it's not proper Doctor Who, it has to lose a couple of points.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that to Big Finish,
No.
because it's presented as proper Doctor Who.
Yeah.
But because this is a weird, not
Doctor Who
story, but it is a Doctor Who story. It's weird. Because I mean, even afterwards, I mean, we were talking about them not making any other television stories or animated stories. There's still a short story on the BBC website featuring the Shalka Doctor, Alison, and the Master. So it is kind of proper Doctor Who, but it's not. It's kind of it's in the Matrix, if you like. It's in the void. It's
like
in a weird
like Big
place.
Finish is Unbound, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, but even so, I think Unbound is more canon than this.
Right.
I don't know why. I just don't feel like it's Doctor Who, and that feels wrong to say that, because everything should be taken on its own merits. But I don't feel comfortable calling it proper
No,
Doctor Who.
I mean, I would never call it proper Doctor Who.
No, but then I would call Sympathy for the Devil and Deadline, I'd call that proper Doctor Who, because it experiments with the idea more.
Yeah.
Doctor Who's all about experimenting and changing things. So I'd give this a 5. I think that's a fair score. I think a 5 is it's not terrible by any means.
Now you've made me wonder whether I should have given it a 6 now.
Oh. Funny.
Yeah.
I think that it falls short of the mark, definitely.
Yeah.
I think that they could have done so much more with it given the limitations, I think they did what they could.
Yeah.
Even so, it's still a letdown for the 40th anniversary. I mean, everybody, if the new series of Doctor Who hadn't been announced and you just had Shalka,
that would have been shite.
You would have felt a bit crap about it, wouldn't you?
That really would have felt like there is no hope for this programme
definitely.
Ever again.
Yeah.
And I mean, they said that on the thing about the website. They
Yeah.
said that the Doctor Who website probably would have finished in 2005 if it hadn't have been for Doctor Who coming back.
So I think Shalka, I think 5 is about right. Are you going to change yours, or are you sticking with your above average?
Well,
6?
I don't know. I thought you liked it more than that, you see, so I think I might have tried to be a bit generous.
I probably like it a bit more than I'm letting on, but I think in this moment of righteousness, I'm going to say I don't feel comfortable calling it Doctor Who, ergo I'm going to give it a slightly lower score.
And I don't think, in all honesty, I mean, I will get the DVD. I don't think, in all honesty, it would ever be a story that I would go, you know what, I fancy watching Scream of the Shalka.
Yeah, I know. I watched it once when the DVD came out and I thought, that's great, they've got that on DVD, I'll put it there. I'm happy to have it on my shelf next to A Girl's Best Friend. I'm not happy to have it next to the TV movie.
No.
It's not canon, it's just slightly, it's next to my box set of Bottom, it's not anywhere, no. 5 out of 10. Our next video is going to be a discussion video.
Yeah.
Wonder what we're going to talk about. We haven't quite come to the details of what we're going to talk about.
Well, I said I would like to talk about violence in Doctor Who. Because that is quite an interesting one, because some people are really...
And I'd like to talk about Christopher Eccleston.
Ooh.
So we can have a mix mash of different people's questions they've submitted over the past week.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, well, tune in for that story, and then after that we'll be doing...
Ghostlight. Ooh, what is that story all about?
Nobody knows.
Well, do we know? Well, we'll soon find out.
Tune in 2 weeks' time or something.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. I think it's I've completely lost what I was going to say then. That's irritating. What was I going to say?
Something about the placement of it, or?
Yeah, I'm sure it was. Oh, that's really annoyed me now. You can cut all this, my rambling nonsense. What was I going to say?
I'll just admire your San Diego exclusives while you're talking.
Yeah. Oh, bloody hell. That's really irritating. Oh, no.
I bet it was a really good point as well.
I can't remember if it was or it wasn't.
I might keep this in the video at the end as an epilogue. Just
me trying to think.
I'm going to just crop out the face so it's just that. And it's just your confused face trying to think about what you were...
What was I going to say? Oh, that's really irritated me. Oh, never mind. Forget it.
I was going to time you.
Forget it.
Bugger. That's really...
I bet we'll do the next video and it will come back to
and
you.
halfway through a conversation about Ghostlight, we go, I remember what I was going to say about Shalka. And I can cut that in.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Okay, fine. Right.
I'm having one last think. I was looking over there and I was trying to think what it was.
Was it the placement? Was it anything to do with the canonicity? Was it...
I really can't remember. That is so annoying.
And then we'll finish the video.
And I go, hang on!
I'll hurriedly have to put the camera back on the tripod and you'll go, I know what it is now.
Oh.
Look at something unrelated. Stare at your Sea Devil for a bit or something. Come on.
Yeah, bring me the knowledge.
Come on.
I
don't think the little string vest is going to help you here, Matt. I think
we're
going to have to leave that there.
Well, there we
what
go.
A pain in the arse.
Never mind.
Oh. Damn it.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Right. Well, 5 and 6.
No, I'm going to go 5. I'm going to go 5. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was it. I remember.
Oh, he's got it. Yes. Okay. Right. Back to original.
It wasn't anything too exciting.
Okay, it's fine.
But all I was going to say is,